Hi, diddle diddle.
How do you greet your diddle diddle in the morning?
Johnny Carson was the original king of late night, and millions of viewers tuned in at bedtime for a few laughs after the evening news. The TV legend paved the way for a wide variety of new talk shows, and they all bore his influence. But his personal life was no laughing matter. Welcome to Do You Remember, and I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick. Today we're headed back to Burbank to go behind the scenes at The Tonight Show. Because people welcomed Johnny Carson into their homes for 3 decades. And plainly speaking, he changed the way we all spent our evenings. But the iconic host struggled with alcohol, he had a turbulent personal life, and sometimes even he went too far to get a laugh. In this video, we'll even be discussing a few celebrities who flat out refused to appear on his show. But before we turn on the tube, hit that thumbs up button for us, it really helps. And subscribe to our channel so you'll never miss a new video like this. And now, with no further ado, here's Johnny. Johnny Carson was born in Corning, Iowa, and moved to Norfolk, Nebraska with his parents Ruth and Homer Carson when he was 8. As a boy, he loved magic and began making appearances as the Great Carsoni as a teenager. In 1943, Carson joined the U.S. Navy, and when his service was over, he began working in radio and TV. He was working as a comedy writer for the Red Skelton Hour and got a huge break when he filled in as host one night when Skelton was injured backstage. And when Jack Paar left The Tonight Show in 1962, NBC tapped Carson to replace the controversial host. The monologues.
Look, just because I'm I hate to say it, a celebrity, I hate that word, a star, let's make it star.
Johnny Carson famously began each broadcast with a monologue full of jokes and one-liners about people and world events. He had a faithful nationwide audience, and viewers hung on to his every word. Retailers were even forced to ration purchases of toilet paper in 1973, just because Johnny joked about a worldwide toilet paper shortage and created a national panic. Johnny Carson, the earliest influencer. I mean, media experts suggest that Johnny Carson's monologues hastened President Nixon's resignation after Watergate, and that they cooled Gary Hart's presidential hopes in 1988. The former senator was accused of having an extramarital affair, and that made him an easy target. Is it something I said? Whoever the guest was on The Tonight Show was oftentimes subjected to some good-natured ribbing in the interview chair, and his jokes would often ruffle a few feathers. Entertainer Wayne Newton called him a mean-spirited human being during an appearance on Larry King Live, and also said, quote, "There are people that he has hurt that people will never know about." And we're gonna circle back to this feud in a bit. In 1978, Fred Rogers demanded equal time after Carson parodied Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in a sketch featuring a crook making a whole lot of sexual innuendos.
Can you say hooker?
So Johnny invited the beloved children's show host on the show, and Rogers wound up becoming a regular guest. But legendary actor Raymond Burr refused to appear on the show after Johnny began making fat jokes at his expense. A boy's best friend isn't his mother. Johnny Carson often blamed his mother's cruel tutelage for his personality defects, and referred to her as Lady Macbeth. Carson claimed that she never took any pride in his accomplishments, and he even blamed her for his failed marriages. When Ruth Carson died, he told his friends, quote, "The Wicked Witch is dead," and he also refused to attend her funeral. But according to his personal friend, Burt Reynolds, who you may also know, Johnny discovered a box of clippings that his mother collected in her home, and Johnny kept it in his bedroom for the rest of his life. A match made in college.
I don't want you to think that I'm just calling some girl that we pay to act like my wife. I wouldn't pay anyone to act like my wife.
Johnny Carson married Joan Jody Wolcott, his college sweetheart, in 1949. He had 3 kids with Jody, but was reportedly more focused on his career than his family. His middle son, Rick, struggled with alcohol, and Carson reportedly refused to visit him while he was briefly committed to Bellevue Hospital for mental health issues. Rick was killed in a traffic accident in 1991, and Carson took a 4-week leave of absence to attend the funeral and mourn his estranged son. Johnny told Esquire that Rick's death reminded him what was really important in life. Unlucky in love. In 1963, Carson divorced Jody and quickly married his second wife, Joanne Copeland. Attorney Henry Bushkin was Carson's lawyer in the early 70s and discussed breaking into Joanne's apartment in his 2013 tell-all memoir. The couple was separated, and Bushkin claimed that he accompanied Carson and a couple of thugs as they all searched for proof that Joanne was having an affair with football legend Frank Gifford. According to Bushkin, Carson was armed with a .38 revolver and began crying when he found photos of Gifford in Joanne's apartment. Kathy Lee Gifford appeared on the Today Show to dismiss the claims. Frank Gifford had previously been accused of having affairs, and the Globe tabloid even hired a stewardess to seduce him in 1997 in an attempt to set him up. Kathy Lee said that when she asked Frank if the story was true, his response was, quote, "I can't remember. Maybe. Frank Gifford died in 2015 and he took the truth with him." Joanne dragged Johnny through a lengthy divorce and eventually received a $500,000 cash settlement, as well as $75K a year in alimony for life. The third time wasn't the charm with Joanna Holland, who received $20 million in cash and property when they divorced in 1985. Carson married Alexis in 1987, and the couple remained together until he died in 2005. But even that was hardly the happiest of marriages. During an argument on their honeymoon, Carson reportedly told her, "We've been married for 3 weeks. If you say something like that again, this marriage won't last another 3 weeks." In 1990, Jody Walcott petitioned a judge for additional alimony and told reporters that with Carson, wives are interchangeable. But Walcott had remarried and the petition was denied.
He's having trouble with his ring finger. I had trouble with my ring finger.
Johnny made a sex tape. You know, it seems every celebrity has a sex tape these days, and Johnny Carson was no different. TMZ reported that a dark-haired Johnny Carson made a sex tape with one of his wives, and it was offered for sale to his estate, who promptly refused to purchase the tape and threatened to sue if it was released. So no, we can't confirm this rumor, but it was a pretty big one. Bottoms up. Johnny had a reputation as a mean drunk behind the scenes, and he discussed his drinking on 60 Minutes in 1977. He admitted he didn't handle alcohol well, but said that he had some wonderful times in the past, mostly with co-host Ed McMahon.
I don't handle it well. You and McMahon? Really you don't? I don't handle alcohol well at all, no. Really don't.
In February of 1982, Johnny Carson was pulled over while he was driving his DeLorean coupe. And he couldn't escape through time like Marty McFly. So his sobriety test revealed his blood alcohol level was 0.16%. Arrested for driving under the influence. Carson pleaded no contest to misdemeanor drunken driving and received 3 years probation. He also had to participate in an alcohol program for drivers and could only drive to work and back without human or animal passengers. And Johnny's drunk driving arrest wasn't the end of his troubles with his DeLorean. He frequently had the controversial engineer as a guest on The Tonight Show, and Johnny became a chief investor in the DeLorean Motor Company. Later that year, John DeLorean was caught on tape in an underground sting operation, arrested for attempting to traffic $24 million worth of cocaine. DeLorean claimed entrapment, and he was eventually acquitted, but the damage to his reputation was already done, and Carson's investment flopped when the company went bankrupt. Can we talk?
Oh, Harry, I have never seen... She raised her arm. I thought Tina Turner was under there. I have never seen...
Joan Rivers oftentimes guest hosted The Tonight Show when Johnny needed a night off. But according to her autobiography, Johnny stopped speaking to her when she got her own talk show in 1986. He considered it a betrayal that she moved to a new network to compete with The Tonight Show, and his grudge continued even after her show was canceled after the one season. The lovable Queen of Mean also claimed that she had an affair with Carson while still married to Edgar Rosenberg. Fortunately, there were no reports of a sex tape. Wayne Newton. In 1980, Johnny Carson was part of the investment team that was acquiring the Aladdin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Wayne Newton led a competing group that eventually bought the property and began a legendary feud between the entertainers. When the media claimed that Carson lost the deal, he retaliated by making Wayne Newton the butt of so many jokes. Johnny questioned his manhood and implied that the entertainer was gay. The jokes continued for years, and Johnny wouldn't return his phone calls or heed his requests to stop. A very angry Wayne Newton eventually stormed into Carson's office at the NBC studios. But the feud continued for another decade, and Newton eventually filed a libel lawsuit against him. Wayne Newton won the suit, but the judgment was eventually thrown out. When Johnny Carson retired in 1992, he held the record for hosting the same series for the longest time. That record stood for 10 years until it was broken by Bob Barker, a fellow entertainment legend who we also have a deep dive video for. During Johnny's final year on air, you may remember the fierce competition between David Letterman and Jay Leno to take over hosting duties. Jay Leno got the job, and Letterman moved to the rival CBS to compete head to head. Johnny Carson always declined appearances on live broadcasts and anniversary specials, but he did make a surprise appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman, so most viewers considered it an obvious snub to Jay Leno and NBC. Carson was inducted into the TV Hall of Fame in 1987 and received Kennedy Center honors in 1993. He mostly stayed out of the public eye after retiring, but you could hear his voice as a cameo on The Simpsons.
Little magic.
Actually, I thought I'd lift this 1987 Buick Skylark over my head.
Hi-yo.
And he also reportedly wrote some material for David Letterman, once again showing who he would have hired. But Johnny Carson was a heavy smoker for most of his life, 4 to 5 packs a day, and he continued smoking even after experiencing COPD symptoms in the 1970s and undergoing emergency quadruple bypass surgery in 1999. Johnny Carson was diagnosed with emphysema in 2002 and passed away in 2005. He was 79 years old. Alright, that has been our look behind the scenes at The Tonight Show. But I've been hosting for far too long, so now we need a replacement. But do you think NBC made the right move by choosing Jay Leno as his successor? Or was it a big mistake? Do you think Jimmy Fallon is doing a good job carrying the torch? Or is it again time for a change? What late night show do you watch now? And has anyone ever touched Carson? Get in the comments and tell me all. And before you go on with your day, please give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind. And subscribe to our channel so you get notified about future videos. And from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.